Hi greedy 3Ds. Every time I've seen a battle between Zod and Superman, Superman has always kicked Zod's proverbial Kryptonian backside, but not so in this depiction here from Berserk 3D, where Superman has had his body handed to him by General Zod. This is a fantastic, beautiful 3D print. I have thoroughly enjoyed making this, and I'll talk you through the whole painting process that I went through to get to this stage here. If you want to get this print, it will be in the item description. It is by Berserk. Stay tuned and I'll take you through the whole painting process. I've made all the parts to this Superman vs Zod model on my Hey Gears Ultracraft Reflex using a couple of resins, starting off with Zod with this Sunlu basic grey, and as you can see the printer has thrown out some wonderful results. If you check out my previous video, I talk about a review of the Hey Gears Ultracraft and also how to trick it into using cheap models. Look at the quality of that. That is Sunlu basic on a really expensive printer, one that doesn't use third-party resins apparently. And I've also used some Jam J Standard Pro resin to make the Superman side of things, and again the detail is incredible. Jam J is one of my favourite resins without doubt, and again it hasn't let me down in any way, shape or form on this model. Beautiful prints, and I have to say this Hey Gears printer is certainly growing on me. Right, now to the painting stage and taking some Army Painter Barbarian flesh for the base skin tones on the flesh here, and I'm just literally slathering it on. Now he has had some Army Painter primer on there first just to give it a black coat, and I'm just going to get that skin colour all the way across before doing the rest of all the skin tones, all the flesh tones with exactly the same colour. The top of him here, you can see he's been absolutely battered, so there's quite a few marks and blemishes and skin sticking out of the uniform, hence so much skin tone going on there. Quite a bit really, and it's going to look a beautiful model. I was just absolutely taken aback with the detail in this model by Berserk. Taking some pure red now. Again, this is an Army Painter war paint, and I'm going to paint his boots. They look absolutely battered, and that is exactly what they're supposed to be like. So don't think the printer has malfunctioned or something else has gone pear-shaped. It hasn't. The boots look as they are supposed to look, worn, battered, and like they've just been 9 rounds with Zod. I'm doing all of the red bits in exactly the same colour. I'll do some shading and some highlights on it as well, but this is the base tone that's going down now. His panty bits, his superhero wears his underpants on the outside, and his underpants today will be red, and I'm just going to give them a blast all the way across again with this pure red until it's covered all over, and there it is, ready for drying and hanging up precariously. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this basic skin tone. I've watered it down about 75% to thinner, and I'm just giving the coat of flesh a blast across to lighten things up a little bit. It's more of a skin colour now, don't worry, we're going to be putting some washes on that. And again, exactly the same with old Zod there. He's had a base layer of barbarian flesh, and I'm going down with this basic flesh colour down. You can see a couple of variations, more so in Zod on the colour variation there. Again, the hands are having exactly the same thing. Don't worry if it looks pale, because we are going to give it some washes to bring some life back to it. And I'm going to do, again, exactly the same across the flesh tones on his torso there. Taking some of this blood mother purple, I'm going to gently and delicately put some of the bruises on Superman. He has been battered in this diorama by Zod, and he's got some comedy looking bruises and black eyes, etc. And I'm just using this purple to extenuate some of that damage and some of those injuries that he's got. You can also see there's a lump on his head there that's going to get exactly the same treatment with this blood mother purple. I don't know why I can't say that. And I'm going to give the other bit round the bottom of his face a little bit of a coating of that too. We're going to do, of course, a lot more work on this on the brush stage, but I just want to get some basic bruising marks on there. You could have used red, but I just felt that purple was a better colour to use. It was a little bit more contrast to red, and I'll add some red into it as well to make it stick out a little bit further. Now once it's all done, I'm taking some of this Rust-Oleum clear, and I am going to coat everything for the next next stage, which is going to be the washes. So I'm just using some of this transparent red from Vallejo here, and I'm just literally popped it into one of my precision bottles, and I'm going to splodge it on. You've probably seen me do this quite a few times, but if this is your first skin tone video, just get this wash on there. Again, it's about a 75% thinner or water to 25% paint, and all I want to do is get it all over the skin and try to just blemish the skin a little bit. Now we're going to take 90% of that paint off, and we're going to leave that red blemish in the background. There were a couple of bits of paint that fell off on this model, as you saw there, but I'm quite happy with that because Superman looks battered, and I'm going to use that to my advantage. Same thing again with Zod, red wash on and red wash off. Just use a little bit of kitchen towel, damp it if you need to, just to get that off. And that's what he looks like. You can just see a little bit of a red hue in the background. The hands are going to get exactly the same treatment with the wash on and off. And look at the colour, look at the variation and the tone now that you can see on that basic skin colour. It really has just set it off wonderfully. Now you could do a yellow wash if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stick with my red wash today, and I think it looks fine. Back to his torso now. Exactly the same process, it's no different at all. I'm just going to get this red wash all over him, all the little nooks and all the little crannies, and once it's on there and it's rubbed in to etch into the skin, I'm going to take it off with a kitchen towel or an earbud. You can do as many coats of these washes as you want. I've just given Superman a couple of coats. I want that red to really stick into his face because he has been punch silly, so it would make sort of accounts that he looks a little bit rouge and a little bit reddened. And I'm going to do exactly the same to Zod because I want to give him some more variation. Look, I've given his lips now some pink, and I've given him just a little bit of pink under the eyes as well, just to brighten him up a bit. And with Superman, his lips have been done too, and I've put some of that wash into the gap in his right eye, and I've painted some black into his left eye, ready for the rest of the eye work that's going to happen. And I'm taking for the eyes some ivory. Eyes are not white, as I've said before, so using some ivory on quite a thin brush, I'm just going to paint the white across the black and leave a very thin outer layer of black, more on the top than the bottom. And I'm going to tidy everything up. Of course, it's not going to look quite as messy as that, but you've got to look at the scale. That's my thumb there. It's a really small head, realistically. I'm going to use the same ivory colour to paint Zod's teeth, and I'm using the pink colour that I used for his lips for his tongue as well. So we're using just a couple of colours on this, but they work really well. And that's Zod now with his eyes done and his teeth done and his tongue painted too, ready for the next step for him, which is the irises. I'm using some black to start with, and I'm really delicately just going to place the irises exactly where I want them. Take your time with this, try not to get it all over your eyes and get it all over the hard work you've done, and old Superman's going to get exactly the same. Now I've chosen to paint this eye open. It is actually closed on the sculpt, but you can get away with either, especially at this scale, which is 100% to the size. So far so good. I'm going to take a little bit of this blue, it's just a light blue colour, just to paint it into his iris as well. I'll put a bit of dark blue in there as well when I put the iris in, but for Zod I wanted him to have brown eyes, just something a little bit different, so I've just used a bit of leather brown for the iris colour for his eyes, and that's all gone on there now. And there we go, that's what Superman looks like with his little pupil in. We're going to do some more work on his eye, we're going to make it look a little bit reddened, but just while all that's drying, I'm going to start painting his hair with a nice thin raggedy looking brush, and I'm going to get all his hair on. Didn't take too long to get the majority of that on, but just take your time with it. You know, make sure you don't get spilling it all over your skin tones at this stage. And I'm using one of these little makeup brushes, I think this is a nail brush, just to paint some of his eyebrows on. Again, eyebrows, I find them so difficult. They never seem to go right for me. Same thing with Zod with the black. I want to give him the same hair colour. I did contemplate giving him brown, but you know what, I think he would look better with black. So again, using that really fine nail brush, and I'm just painting on his moustache. I'm going to give him a grey dry brush a little later, but for now he's going to be having some black hair all the way across, and taking that raggedy old brush. I think a raggedy brush is great for the edges where the hair joins the body, and that's what Zod looks like with his hair and his eyebrows on and his eyes done. I think he's looking lovely. Now, taking some of this blood for the blood god, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to add the blood effects onto Superman. As you can clearly see from this design, he's been absolutely hammered by General Zod, and I'm just using that nail brush again, but this time I'm going to follow the lines that Berserk have kindly put on the model, just to show the blood running down his face. There's quite a few bits of this to go on. Just again, take your time with it, have a little bit of fun, pop the blood where you think the blood needs to go. There's no real design. You can add little bits extra if you want to, or if you want to follow the actual design, you fill your boots. But that's what he looks like for me, and I've just put some of that red wash in his eye as well, just to make his eye look a little bit red and sore, and I'm gonna pretty much call him done. There's probably going to be a little bit of tidying up to do around them eyebrows. Taking some of that stone golem, and this is that dry brushing, that colour I wanted to put onto Zod, just that greyish colour to make him look a little bit older. He is older than Superman, I would estimate, so he's going to have a bit of grey and a little bit of colour and highlight in his hair, and that colour has done a wonderful job. That stone golem, don't forget his beard as well, get him all over, and I'm really pleased again with how Zod is looking. So far it's all going remarkably well. Ultramarine blue is the colour I'm going to use for Superman's costume, and I'm taking a really narrow brush and I'm just going to chill out and do this bit. There's an awful lot of material, so I'm going to get the first layer on, which is this blue. We're going to come back with a different colour blue in a bit, and we're going to tidy up some of those edges to add a bit of variation, but for now I'm just going to go over the whole of his uniform to get the blue on. Can you see his veins there? Don't his veins look good on his arm? I haven't really done anything special with that. I've just painted the skin tone over the primer, and it almost looks like they're blue, and I haven't done that on purpose. I could have took some credit for it, but I wouldn't do that. It looks really nice. That blue, getting that on, that took a long time. Take your time with this bit. Try not to get it all over your flesh. It's a little bit laborious, it's a little bit monotonous, it takes you ages, but it really will be worth it in the end. And don't worry about the edges at this stage. We're going to come back with an even smaller brush and go around those edges. I'm going to sit down and chill out and spend an hour or so painting all those in, and I'm going to enjoy every moment. So let's just have a little look at what it looks like for now. Well, there's the hand and there's the arm bit of his uniform painted on, and you can also see there's those wonderful veins that I miraculously created, and there's all the uniform with its first colour on, all ready for a bit more work. So far Superman and Zod are coming along wonderfully. So I've just nipped back to the airbrush and I've masked up the S on the front of his uniform, and I'm going to add some demonic yellow, and I am going to just splodge it on there. Now, I don't know what it is with me and masking, but I always end up with a bit of overspill, and when I've took this off, yep, there's a little bit of overspill. It's certainly not the end of the world, because I've got to put another layer of blue on, and I'm going to do a bit more work on that blue, but oh, it just frustrates the hell out of me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but no matter how many times I do it, I always get overspill, and I can see why really. It's in the little nooks and the crannies where it's soaked through, but no problem, the yellow's on, and the reason I've put that yellow on is because I'm going to paint some red on it afterwards, and red goes on yellow really well. Now back to that ultramarine blue, and I'm popping that on his legs here again with the brush. I did think about masking it and spraying it, but I want them to look a little bit shady and a little bit worn and hammered, so I'm just going to do it with the brush, and I'm going to smooth out the blue, the ultramarine blue, as I go through, and them legs are okay. Now what did I say about red going on yellow? Red goes on yellow, lovely. Trying to paint yellow on anything is difficult, so painting it with an airbrush is fab. Now for the rest of his uniform, I'm going to mix the ultramarine blue with a little bit of white just to get a paler colour of that, and I popped it on a little dry brush, and I'm going to go right the way across his uniform just to make his uniform look some more aged, some more battered. I keep saying battered, just to make it look like he's been in a battle. Look at the state of him, it needs that all over it. Done the same with his legs, and I've done the same with his arm, and I've took a little bit of this waste wash, and I'm just going to go around the edges, all the ripped bits of the uniform with this waste wash. I just think it's a way to make it look dirty, a way to make it look raggedy, and to just draw the eye to what would naturally be a darkened area in rips and damage, and that's all I'm doing with that wash there. I've taken a darker wash, it's an army painter dark wash, and what I'm going to do next is just go into the deeper areas of his arms and the folds of his clothes, and I'm just going to paint some darker washes in there. I'm a fan of washes, I really am. So if you want to get yourself some, they're great. If you can make your own as well, if you're up, you can do that. Fair play to you, but I like to mine are army painter, and I'll put a link in the description where you can get the washes that I use. But look how lovely that red looks now. We're going to have to age that up a little bit. We're going to have to make it look a little bit worn and knackered like the rest of his uniform. I'm just taking some of those washes as well, and I'm adding it into his legs, and I'll do the same on his arm again, just to age it up, make it look tired, make it look worn, make it look well used. Pure red, matte white, pink. Virtually, if you've got a pink, use pink. I just had these two colours to hand, so mixed them together, and what I'm going to do with this now is just dry brush across the red parts of his uniform, just to make it again look a little bit of highlighted areas. I'm going to add some washes onto it as well to darken it up, but I don't want it to look stark red. I just want to add a little bit of wear and age into it. Same again with his boots. All those marks on his boots there, I'm going to come back to those, and at the end I'm going to put a little bit of a muddy base on, so I'm going to cover those boots where it's all marked and dented and pitted with actual mud. That's all part of the design. That's nothing to do with the printing process. That's how they're supposed to look. There's that dark tone again, but this time I'm getting it on a little bit thicker all over him. I really do want to make him look dirty and battered, and there we go. That's Superman's uniform done. Coming back to the cape in a bit, do not worry. And there we go. That's him. At this stage, you can see I've done the belt with a little bit of copper, and I've put everything together just to make sure it all fits and see what it looks like. He's not glued yet, he's just literally balanced together. Now that cape, pure red in an airbrush, and I did it with it in situ, and I gave it a light coat of red to allow the black to come through. I did it really carefully so I don't get it all over the face and everything else, and I've got to say, so far so good. It's come out wonderfully. For the base, I've used my Creality K1, and that has printed perfectly. It was a big old base, but it's printed marvellously. As you can see here, using some Jam J high speed PLA. Now, when you're doing bases, I tend to do bases in PLA because they're bigger, they're easier to do in PLA, I feel, and the supports on this K1, they're just falling off. It's coming off really, really well. You can do it in resin, of course, if you want to, but my resin printer isn't probably big enough to get away with it, so I did this in one go on the K1, and all I'm going to do is glue it all together, bit of super glue, bit of activator, glue it together, and that's your job done. Again, with bases and with the K1, the quality of the print is fine, because bases, to me, you can get away with a little bit of a less detailed approach, and your PLA filament on a decent PLA printer will give you what you need for the bases. Resin, of course, will give you a fantastic finish, but you know, you can get some fantastic finishes in PLA, and I'm just going to use that activator to glue it all together. And to cover those gaps in the middle, I'm just going to use a little bit of normal resin. This is just some Jan J standard grey, and I'm going to use that UV light, paint it on in the gap to seal the gap, and then cure it with the UV light and build little layers. That's the secret with this, really. If you put too much on, it's not going to cure, just the surface will cure, and you'll find that it will start to run through your model and it will drip out the bottom. So very thin layers very often until everything's done, and then I'm just going to leave it under the UV light for about 10 minutes to make sure everything is cured. Once that's done, I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper and I'm just going to rough it up a little bit to make sure it's clean. I also use just a bit of alcohol just to spray on some IPA, just to wipe out any of that residue on there that was still a little bit tacky. Sanded it all over, and once I've done that, over to the old station there, pop the fan on, and I'm using some Army Painter primer to give it a blast right the way across, and that's the base pretty much done to start with. We're going to do some dry brushing on that, of course we are. We're going to add a bit of mud to it, oh yes, but that's the main body of the base all done. Now moving on to Zod. Now Zod has had a layer of black all over. He's had the Army Painter black, and he is on the whole silver with little bits of like a copper colour. So I'm going to take a big dry brush and I'm going to dry brush some of this silver. This is just sterling silver. Any old silver will pretty much do. and I'm just giving it a light coat right the way across just to add that silver metallic contrast colour that dry brushing will give you. Same again on pretty much the rest of Zod. There are some areas of him that I've concentrated on and made much more silver, and you'll see that in the finished model. It's exactly the same process what I've done. I've just gone over it a few more times to make it look really, really silver. The good thing with Zod is 90% of him is this colour, so he's not going to take as long to paint up as Superman, but you still need to take quite a lot of care on him because we want to make him look really lovely, don't we? Keep that dry brushing going all the way across, use that silver, get it all over him, and Zod, his first layer anyway, is done and dusted. Taking this Vallejo copper, and this is what I was saying about a little bit of a contrast colour, I'm going to paint certain areas of him using this contrast. So just follow the guidelines on the model and have a look at a couple of reference pictures, but there's a few parts on Zod that he's not grey or silver. He's got this, it is a copper colour. Sometimes the pictures I've seen of him look like he's got gold, but copper for me is what I want to use, and I think it looks much nicer. And I'm going to go around all those little parts of his uniform with a really fine brush, just taking my time getting those all coppered up as well, and that's a great contrast to the black and the dry brush silver on General Zod. His emblem, his Z thing that's on his arm there, I'm just using a little bit of pure red on that. I'm not going to make it stark red because I don't want it to look absolutely pristine. I just want to give it a bit of a darker shaded red. And back to the wash that I used on the skin, I felt that his armour needed a little bit of a hue, and in some of the reference pictures he had a reddy purple hue, so a little bit of a red wash on top of the dry brush silver just again adds another layer, another je ne sais quoi to his armour. It just makes it look like it's got a red glint, and do you know what? Happy, that's just what I wanted it to look like. I did exactly the same with all of the shinier parts of his armour. I didn't go over everything of his armour, rather. I didn't go over everything, I just went over the shiny parts, and then to bring them back to life a little bit, I used this panel line ink, and I just went through all the edges, I touched all the little nooks, all the little crannies, just to make them look a little bit stark. If you've never used this panel liner, it's incredible stuff. Just look at it. It uses this like osmotic effect, and you touch it and it pulls down your model. It's really, really brilliant. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you've mastered it, I love it. Absolutely love it, and it lasts forever. I've done the same with his shoulder pauldron. I've given that a lot of black and I've livened it up. Before I move on to the base, we spoke earlier about some dry brushing, and this is just some grey primer which I'm going to put right the way across it. A nice big brush, and it didn't take too long to do to get it all over. Now bases, again, you don't need to make them difficult. They're lovely to look at, don't get me wrong, but they're not too hard to get them to look like rock. Stone Golem on the top of that primer, and all I've done with Stone Golem here is I've just gone around the edges just to highlight the white parts, and look at that. Beautiful. You can add washes on it. You can add a bit of Agrax Earth shade on there, a little bit of green, a little bit of brown, whatever you want to do, just to give it another hue if you want to do it. I didn't really do it with this, and the reason I didn't do it is because I used some of this mud effect from Vallejo, and I literally just painted it down the middle. I popped Superman on, I popped Zod on to see where they were going to be and if there's any areas that didn't need to do, if they were going to be in the way of the model, for example, and I just painted it on. When I let it dry, and once it had dried, I gave it another coat. Superman's boots, told you about those earlier. I'm going to give those a layer of the same old mud because of course it's going to get mud all over his boots, and he's done and he's dusted. Let's have a little look at it, all finished. Well, I hope you enjoyed that Greedy 3Ds, and I hope you found something in that useful. Now, I just want to start this by saying I've never claimed to be an expert in anything regarding 3D printing or painting. I just love this hobby, and I love sharing what I do with you guys. And I improve week in, week out, and I make mistakes as everybody else does. But I just hope you've learned something from this or picked something up, because I know when I watch YouTube videos, I pick things up from everybody else. And sometimes they're good habits, sometimes they're bad ones. But I hope you've enjoyed this process. This model is beautiful. When I saw it on the B3dserk webpage, I just had to have this model. And it's one of those models you see and you just know you've got to have it. You've just got to have it. So if you enjoyed what you've seen today and you want to support Greedy 3D, there's a few ways you can do this. You can subscribe to the channel, which is free and simple, just one click down below. You can join the Patreon. It's free or as little as £1 if you want to put a little bit into the channel. Or if you want to buy something from the item description, if you buy a printer, some resin, if you buy some paint, a little bit will kick back to the channel. And that's a way of supporting me to carry on doing things like this for you. I want to say a big thank you to my patrons. Thank you guys for your support. It really is appreciated. And again, I'll see you really soon on Greedy 3D. I don't know what we're going to be doing next time. It's a little bit random. I've got some reviews coming up though from quite a couple of big printer companies. So stay tuned for those, and I'll see you real soon on Greedy 3D.